Hey, it's Mazzy back again with It's the Music Stupid number 58. I showcase 5 albums from my collection where it's about the music first. Now, you want a great sounding record? Of course you do, but the music comes first. Simple as that. How hard is that, right? I want to start with an album from 2006, and this is Chan Marshall, who is Cat Power's album, The Greatest. Now, you may look at this thinking this is the greatest hits, or you have this nice reflective surface. I mean, these are problematic when you're doing videos. These kind of, ooh, wow, look at that. I'm tripping here. Okay, Cat Power. To me, this is a perfect album, and this is the album of hers that brings it all together. She has made several albums of all covers. She's a great interpreter. She's sort of a modern version of Dusty Springfield. She's got that, even though Dusty Springfield's from the UK, she always had, especially because of Dusty in Memphis, that album really solidified that southern soulfulness of Dusty Springfield. And I think Cat Power, that's the moniker she uses, Chan uses, has a lot of that, especially in this album. This is her first album of all original compositions. And to me, as I said again, I'm repeating myself, it is a perfect album. I love the opening, the song, The Greatest. It just has this slow groove and just a dreamy quality to it. Lived in Bars was sort of one of the singles on this, which is another great song. But again, it's blue-eyed Southern soul music, a little country, a little folksy. Great band, great album, highly recommended, and it does come with the lyric insert sheet. There's a picture of her at the time, and she's made some wonderful cover albums. Albums, I believe, completely of covers, although the most recent album she did this year, which is one of the best albums of the year, it's her at the Carnegie Hall. Excuse me. It's her at the Royal Albert Hall. I'm getting my halls mixed up. She duplicates the famous Dylan 1966 concert at the Royal Albert Hall, and it's a 2 album set, and 1 LP is the acoustic set that Dylan did, and 1 is the electric set, and it is a wonderful album. I'm a little more partial to the acoustic set in that album, but Cat Power does Dylan at Royal Albert Hall is a wonderful record. But right now we're talking about this album. Of all her studio albums, I would say this is the one to get. To tip your toe into Cat Power's music, this is the one to start with, from my opinion. Going back to 1985 on Enigma Records, and this is my original copy, and I don't usually keep records in shrink, but this is Green on Red. This is their second album. They were a band originally out of Tucson, but they migrated to Los Angeles, and that's really where they kind of developed and they got known. They do come from like a surf guitar thing originally in the Southwest, but then they really morphed into what we now call Americana. They're psychedelic landscape things, in the vein of the Uncle Tupelos, later Wilco. They're definitely DNA of that genre of music, of Americana, adding this psychedelic punk ethos in here too. The main guy, the constant member, is Dan Stewart on vocals and guitar, and it's a wonderful, moody, psychedelic country Americana record. And so if you like all those bands, from Smog, from Uncle Tupelo, Wilco, Calexico, this is something, but it's got a real dirge sound to it. Sprawling psychedelic guitar things happen, and this is Green on Red's Gas, Food, Lodging from 1985. This is their second album from 1985. How many times can I say 1985? 1974, the first solo album by Jorma Kaukonen called Qua. This was going to be it's actually a combo. It's Jorma Kaukonen and Tom Hobson, who also plays guitar and sings on this. At the time, I think they wanted Yorma wanted this to be a kind of a joint album with one artist on one side, one on the other. But of course, Yorma's the known quality. Of course, Jorma Kaukonen from Hot Tuna, and especially from Jefferson Airplane. What a great guitar blues player. You know, I've seen him many times with Jefferson Airplane, with Hot Tuna, solo artist, and he's such an amazing guitar player. This is produced by Jack Cassidy, the bass player of the Airplane, and the other half of Hot Tuna, and it is an acoustic folk bluesy album, Qua. The insert photographs taken by the late great photographer Jim Marshall, recorded at Wally Heider's in San Francisco, which is really a hub in the Tenderloin district of all these great albums, from David Crosby to Jefferson Airplane to Santana. What a wonderful, wonderful record. I have an original, but this happened to be, I think this was a record store day. Yeah, this is number 233 of 500. Anyway, you get this. Now, it was originally on Grunt Records. Grunt was the custom label for Jefferson Airplane. And I to this day, I think they really took RCA for a ride. Of course, Surrealistic Pillow was the big breakout, the second album of the Jefferson Airplane in '67. And after that, they did well, but they never had that massive appeal of that album. But I would say everything from '66, their first more folk rock record, to Surrealistic Pillow in '67 through '69, Volunteers, are perfect records, including the live record. They were the best of the San Francisco bands then. Better Than the Dead, great jamming, great singers, the greatest singers of all the San Francisco psychedelic bands. And then they kind of imploded. And they were kind of splitting in certain ways, doing their solo project, which is great. But the best material and production wasn't really with the Jefferson Airplane after that. There are a few exceptions, a couple of tracks on Bark, a couple of tracks on Long John Silver, but Long John Silver is a failure. But Grunt was their custom label, kind of like Apple for the Beatles and Rolling Stones record for the Stones, that RCA gave them. And they did some weird ass shit on Grunt Records, not just the solo records, of course. Jefferson Airplane begat Jefferson Starship, and whatever you think about that, and that was part of RCA, became very successful, in some cases more successful than the Airplane. Not my cup of tea, really, the first couple of those albums, but this is that bluesy sound that, it like the Hot Tuna thing, but it's just very low key. There is some string arrangements on a couple tracks, but wonderful record, Qua, Quah. Jorma Kaukonen and Tom Hobson from 1974. Then we have an album from 1969, and I remember buying this partially because of the price. Columbia Records in like around 68, 69 would have these double albums, and I'm not just talking about repackaging hits collections. There were certain artists, a good example is the first Chicago Transit Authority album, that were basically $1 more, and double albums were usually several dollars more. So when you're a young kid buying records, there's a double record, instead of say $3.98, it's $4.98. In that period of time, that would be about the price in 1969. And I had heard his album with what's the song? She Caught the Katy, Left Me a Mule to Ride, and that's Taj Mahal. Double album. This is Giant Step. Now, of course, the Giant Step is the Goffin King song that most of us, in fact, myself, I knew that song because of the Monkees. Take a Giant Step. That's the same song. This is a beautiful, beautiful version. Now, this is, again, Giant Step and Old Folks at Home. Two completely different albums. I'll start with this. The Old Folks at Home is really a solo acoustic folky blues album by Taj Mahal. He's singing, he's playing guitar, playing harmonica. It's a lot of like Sonny Terry, Brown McGee, that period of the country blues. A wonderful record. Of course, he would go on Taj Mahal. Even he acted in the film, I guess it was 71 or 72, called Sounder, about the slave years in America. A wonderful film with Cicely Tyson. Taj Mahal's in it. But this is a really great homage to that blues, and he's the real deal. I got to know him also through Ry Cooder, because him and Ry Cooder started a band called the Rising Suns. They recorded one album that was never released until maybe the last 20 years, finally. It was like a super group where they all took on the personas of a iconic thing around the world, the wonders of the world. And he got Taj Mahal. But that record is so wonderful, the bluesy record. Living Track, Country Blues, Blind Boy Rag, Staggerly, Cajun Tude, Fishin' Blues. So it's really an organic, rootsy record, and it's just wonderful. And it was for someone like me at 14 years old when this came out, 15 years old. It was introduction to that blues and going back to the original versions of some of these songs. The main album, Giant Step, has this great band of Gary Gilmore, Taj Mahal, of course, Jesse Ed Davis, great guitar player, and Chuck Blackwell on drums. There's a picture of them. And that is a more electric blues thing, starting out with Ain't Gonna Whistle Dixie Anymore, which is just this whistling opening, really kind of a wonderful slow groove to it, going into Take a Giant Step. But they cover Good Morning Little Schoolgirl. It seems like all these blues bands, including the British blues bands like 10 Years After did a great version of that as well. We're covering that song. 6 Days on the Road, Further on Down the Road, Bacon Fat, a jam. That wouldn't be, it'd be kind of something you'd expect also later on the Almond Brothers records, that kind of slow Southern blues thing. This is a wonderful record, 2-record set. So you get basically two sides of the blues, the electric blues, but it's not, it's a very soothing electric blues. There's some upbeat songs, but there's a lot of slow cooking, simmering, wonderful electric blues on here, especially with the guitar playing of Jesse Ed Davis on here. Just a wonderful record by Taj Mahal. And lastly, I'm going with a live record from 1969, I believe. It's their third album. This is Poco Deliverin. Now, Poco doesn't get a lot of love. When I worked at ABC in 1978, 79, they actually broke for the first time once they were on ABC with Crazy Love. Very kind of MOR low key. You know, they're one of the first all country rock bands, and the DNA here is stupendous. Of course, this is the last album with Jim Messina. He was original member and producer of Poco, worked on the last Buffalo Springfield album. Of course, he would produce an album a couple years after this with Kenny Loggins that would be become the origin of Loggins and Messina. But what a great great producer, great engineer, and I love his Stratocaster sound he gets all over this record. This is a wonderful live record. This is tight. This is rocking. You also have on here Richie Furay, of course, who is original member of Poco as well, and an original member of Buffalo Springfield. Timothy B. Schmidt, who would later go on to join the Eagles. And God, this is great. Again, they do some of their hits that were not really hits, but like Picking Up the Pieces from their first album. They do Kind Woman, the song, the Buffalo Springfield song. And Richie Furay just has this beautiful tenor, angelic voice. But this is a tight record. This rocks with a great country sound to it. Here's the band. There's a young Jim Messina there. And I think this is just a great, great, great band. Yeah. Oh, Telecaster. Excuse me. Jim Messina and his Telecaster. I forgot. He has got that tele sound, not a Stratocaster. Richie Furay, Timothy Schmidt, George Gratham on drums, who would be, and Rusty Young, of course, on a steel guitar and dobro. So Poco was a great band that never fully realized their what they had there. And of course, when the Eagles came and broke in 73, 74, you know, Poco was left in the dust. They didn't have those sweet harmonies like the Eagles. But I say, you know, diving in the first few albums, Good Feeling to Know is one of my favorite albums by Poco. But this is a motherfucker of a live record. One record, single record, live, recorded in, I think it's recorded at the New York Felt Forum and Boston Music Hall. I did see them live around 1970, so Jim Messina was not in the band. He had left then. But they were always a great live act, and they made great records. Their records are cheap. Diving into Poco, if you like country rock, but like a little different take on it. It's not, again, as melodic in a way as the Eagles. I think it's more interesting. But of course, you know, it's not a competition. Music's not a competition, is it? So that is, it's the music, stupid. Poco, Yorma, Cat Power, Taj Mahal, and Green on Red. As He Loves You. See you next time.